A lot of time I have like a measuring cup, but I can use a dry tool as well to just scoop a bunch out. And so we're going to eye how much we need to fill the void. It's not that deep of a keyway actually, but it'll be deep enough. And then after we'll put a little like additional wash on it to strengthen it up and raise it up a little. So it's probably about the right amount there. We can always mix more if we need it. I think so. So generally people are going to add more water than they should. And so when you're mixing the dry components, this historic pointing mortar is a completely dry material, so it has, to repeat, it has natural hydraulic lime and sand in it. It's just 2 ingredients. And it's basically in a ratio of NHL, natural hydraulic lime, 1 part to about 2.5 parts sand. But this is actually blended in Germany, not in our building. And so we're just going to mix it. So the wet to dry ratio, you're looking at only like about 1 part of liquid to about 4 parts of dry, approximately. And people tend to add too much water quickly and turn into soup. And then they keep adding more dry to you know, firm it up. But we can also dry it out really quickly with a couple paper towels, and I'll show you that in a minute as well. So we just mix this up for a minute. And this is actually a little bit on the wetter side than I need, but for the scratch coat, actually, that's what I'm really looking for. And so I'm just going to come back over here into the keyway, and I'm going to start by putting a scratch coat down. And so you can actually hear it scratch. I've heard this also called a peanut butter coat, but this is going to we're going to build off of this and get a better bond. It's not good to just, you know, fill the whole thing up really quickly and then expect it all to bond together. So then we're going to come up the edges. So kind of like frosting a cake, although I've never done that. But whenever I have anyone start to do this, that's what they say. So they must have done it. So I'm going to come around the edge. Okay, now I'm going to build up the center a bit. And this stuff is a little wetter than I want, so I'll show you how we can dry it out really quickly. Thanks. So I'm going to show you a trick I've been doing for about a decade or longer. And so this is just too wet, and we could take this and just put it on here. These blue shop towels work a lot better at this than other paper towel, but we could use cotton rags or something, and we can draw out most of the excess moisture about that quick. And I probably put a little more on here at once than I should have, but you'll get the idea in a second. And so it firms it right up, turns it into another material. You can see it's even a different color slightly. It's all going to merge together anyway, but I don't want to make soup. You're also going to tend to get a little liquefaction when you push the stone in because the compression it puts on the mortar and the force kind of tends to push the liquid out. So that's looking pretty good. I'll show you how we can do it without lifting it. They like to lift things, but I like to walk them. And we can just walk this in like this. And I'll go onto a couple of blocks now. It's kind of uneven surface, but it should be fine. And so I could come right up and protect the edge. Okay, then I'll come onto this block. Onto this one. Now I can center it, walk it around, so you never have to lift it. Okay, so I'll center it a little better. And now I'll take this block out and drop this side. Are we reading the right direction?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question, though.
And look, it sits there on its own. It's within the bubble, so yep. I don't think we want to mess with that. And it's very close both ways, so I'll show you how we can prop it, and then we'll work on cleaning up the mortar and repointing it better. So we want to get a plant with this, get a good bite, and then we can bring it right up to where we need it. This is called plumb when we're going up and down, which is 90 degrees to level. Plant this side, and A lot of time on the inscribed side, if you just lightly drop it right into an inscription, it'll just stay right where you put it, like that. Now it's solid. Keyway is, it should come forward a little probably, so we can do that. To even it out a little.
How long does the mortar take to set?
Good question. It's gonna firm up in a couple hours, but overnight it's gonna be a reasonable strength. If it rains up, we're gonna protect it. So what I usually do is I'm gonna dry it out with some of these paper towels, and I'll just like lay it out in the joint. If I can get the grain right, if I tear one of these in half and then fold it over, it'll run most of the way down, and I'll just tuck it in loosely and leave it in there. Got a big pile of mortar here, so we'll just scoop it up. Okay, so we're going to dry up some more of this again. So we want to get as much of this excess moisture out as we can, because that's going to cause shrinkage and cracking. You don't want it to be like cake batter. You want it to be like firm. And so when you're like pushing the mortar in little bits, you fill in the void. You could feel it pushing against the mortar under it. You don't want it to just be like diving in. You don't want soup. So this is much better. You can see now it's so dry it's not even getting on my hands. So I'm going to pull this out on this end, and I'll start from here. And also it helps to have different size tools, but we can turn a bigger tool sideways, but we can use the small tool, the 3/16 to go straight in, much easier, and works better too. Still a little wet in there, so I'll just dry it up one more time quickly, and then I'm going to go ahead and just finish it up. So any questions about anything we did today? Or?
So when can I use D2 on them?
It's a good question. I'd give it a couple days generally, probably a few days. So I'm just pointing this in now, filling. Down a couple times, like tomorrow and the day after, and that will like feed it moisture and it will cure better. In a situation like this, actually, if it rains, it'll probably, I mean, if we didn't cover every bit of it, it'll probably creep back in because it's on a, stone base. If that gets wet, it'll dry in like a sponge. But anyway, you're supposed to keep mortar moist for a few days afterward so it cures properly. That's the same reason we don't want to put the mortar on a dry stone, because it'll dry out the mortar too quickly. It'll rob it of its moisture, and in the worst case scenario and really, really dry weather, it's a big problem doing mortar work in like Arizona and places like that, especially if it's sunny and windy. You can get what's called a flash cure, and that'll mean it like totally dehydrates the mortar, and it'll get hard and dry, but it won't really ever harden properly. It won't cure, and so then it just will never really be a good mortar.
One of the ones that we were like,
one more spot here.
Why didn't it hold?
If it cures slow, it makes crystals.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and if it freezes, it'll crystallize too, and I've had that happen. And so you can work in colder weather, and it'll take a long time to cure, but you can't work below freezing. And so if you get like seesawing and late in the season or early season, you can protect it pretty well at night. But if it does freeze, it'll crystallize, and you'll know it. And so it'll crumble on the surface.